Good morning. You're looking live at Orbital Science Corporation's Antares rocket on Launch Pad 0A along the eastern shore of Virginia's NASA's Wallops Flight Facility. You see a countdown clock there to the countdown for launch of the Antares rocket, delivering the Cygnus supply vehicle to the International Space Station. The launch time has been adjusted slightly. The new liftoff time is targeted for 58 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock Eastern Time. 10:58 now is the targeted launch time. That to provide a little more time for a gaseous nitrogen regulator adjustment that needed to take place. We're in the middle of fueling, and everything is continuing to go very smoothly so far in the countdown, which essentially began about 1:30 this morning Central Time, 2:30 Eastern Time, with a call to stations of the launch team there at Wallops. Obviously, great anticipation for today's launch. It will be the 135th cargo vehicle or visiting vehicle to the International Space Station. The International Space Station at the time of launch will be 260 miles above the South Atlantic, so deep over the South Atlantic as the Antares rocket lifts off. We're broadcasting from Houston, and watching over it throughout the day is a flight control team and a crew on board the station that are greatly anticipating the launch this morning. The team has a view of the rocket on the launch pad that you were just looking at up on one of the forward screens here in the room. So obviously great anticipation here as well. Mike Lammers is watching over the team today, but Courtney McMillan is nearby. She's the flight director who will be the lead for this Cygnus voyage to the International Space Station. Cygnus is has been affectionately named the G. David Low for former three-time space shuttle astronaut David Low, who left NASA after his shuttle career and went to Orbital Sciences. He was key, worked his way up through Orbital Sciences since 1996. And ended up as the Senior VP and Program Manager for the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services program. Of course, that's the program that led to where we are today to launch the first cargo vehicle for Orbital from Virginia to the International Space Station. Also watching along very keenly from here in Houston in the viewing room are a group of school children. They're among the invited guests to the control center to watch the launch this morning. School children from Odyssey Academy in Galveston, Dickinson High School, McAdams Junior High School, and League City's Barschlag Elementary. All of these students have experiments, and so they're very keenly interested in what's going on because they have experiments aboard that Cygnus spacecraft. Also joining me once again, and I'm very pleased to have him here, is John Steinmeier. He is the Senior Project Manager for the Launch Systems Group of Orbital. John, welcome in. This is a great day.
Yes, it is, Kyle. Thanks. It's great to be back here. As we were talking earlier, the launch team is currently making final preparations for our COTS demo launch today, which will demonstrate the complete systems capability that Orbital has designed and developed to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. It'll consist not only of our Antares launch vehicle, which we successfully demonstrated last April,
right,
but also, as you mentioned, the new Cygnus cargo transfer vehicle that will enable us to actually deliver the payloads to the space station.
And we'll be showing you all of that. We have some animation and some photographs, graphics to talk through during this last half hour or so of the countdown. But right now we're in the middle of fueling there. They should be wrapping that up here within the next 10 or so minutes. So we'll be following along with the countdown and providing all the updates to you folks out there. But everything so far is going well. You see that clock counting backward to the targeted liftoff time just about 38 minutes from now.
Select 3 on countdown net. Meet me on engineering 1 at your discretion regarding rocket cam. LC, elect 3 on countdown 1. LC, elect 3 on countdown 1.
Elect 3, this LCA, go ahead.
LCA, have a plan for rebooting the rocket cam system. Ready to brief at your discretion.
Okay, stand by 1 sec.
Roger that.
You're listening mostly to the Range Control Center there at Wallops, their countdown loop, so you'll hear a lot of the engineering discussions, and one of those is associated with what's affectionately called the rocket cam, a camera up on the rocket itself that looks down after launch. They're having a little bit of trouble getting the view from that rocket cam. It's not an issue for launch. Obviously, it's a very nice to have to see the rocket as it heads into orbit.
Roger. Plan for recycling rocket cam is that we would go through the steps in Appendix K4, but we wouldn't execute those steps until at least T-minus 20 minutes.
Copy.
Okay, Elect 3, stand by here. Let's take this conversation anomaly 1 after I've completed the poll to proceed with MES low flow chill down.
Roger that.
And launch team LC on countdown 1. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and kick off step 336. This is the poll to proceed with start of MES low flow chill down at T-minus 30 minutes. GSO?
GSO is go.
GSO is go. RSO?
RSO, go pending resolution of DFO issue.
Copy that. RSO is go pending. NASA TD?
NASA TD, go pending resolution of DFO.
Copy that. NASA TD is go pending. OLL?
OLL is go.
OLL is go. Stage 1?
Stage 1 is go.
Stage 1 is go. GCE?
GCE is go.
GCE is go. ACE?
ACE is go.
ACE is go. LD?
LD is go.
LD is go. Launch team is go for MES chill down. We have a pending against DFO at this time. MES low flow chill down will commence at T-minus 30 minutes. Check step 336.
And that poll was to proceed with the final countdown to get all of the goes. There's one outstanding range issue, and that's just associated with a very low risk but an overflight issue relative to some of the homes in the area below the flight path. So they're still working that issue, but the vehicle itself is in excellent shape. John, it sounds like everything's going very smoothly, except for a couple of minor issues that push the launch time out, but everything else looks pretty good with the vehicle.
Yeah, Kyle, everything you heard the most recent poll to proceed with operations. The issue that they alluded to is actually an overpressure issue in a worst case, very worst case scenario. So we're hoping the range can resolve that. Meanwhile, the team proceeds through the loading operations into the final count. Maybe while the team proceeds with the count, we can take a look at the complete mission profile for the COTS mission today. So the Antares launch vehicle utilizes a liquid-fueled first stage and a solid motor Castor 30 upper stage. It lifts off from Pad 0A at Wallops Island, Virginia. After liftoff, the first stage will fire for approximately 4 minutes, propelling the launch vehicle to an altitude of approximately 130 kilometers before shutting down and separating. The upper stage continues on an unpowered trajectory for about 91 seconds, during which the fairing separates from the vehicle before ignition of the second stage. The second stage burns for a little more than 2.5 minutes before burning out at an orbital altitude of about 240 kilometers. Less than 10 minutes after liftoff, the cargo transfer vehicle, the Cygnus, will separate. A little while after that, it will deploy its solar arrays and then continue on a path to rendezvous with the space station. That will take a period of about 4 days, during which The team will conduct a series of maneuvers to demonstrate the operation and the control of the spacecraft, including the Cygnus LiDAR system, a guidance and navigation sensor that uses laser light to determine the distance between Cygnus and the ISS. Cygnus will approach closer, and Orbital and the ISS crew will work to position Cygnus to enable it to be captured by the robotic arm. Astronaut Luca Parmitano will then actually maneuver and berth Cygnus at the Harmony node Nadir port. Once berthed, Cygnus will unload its cargo, or the team will unload the cargo from Cygnus, and will remain berthed to the space station for about 30 days. During that time, once the cargo is unloaded, the team on board station will load non-essential items and items to be disposed into Cygnus for the return disposal.
Launch Team LC, be advised, we will not be performing step 365 of the final countdown. This is the removal of external power from rocket cam. That step was performed via an appendices in Kilo 1. Again, we will not be performing step 365 in the final countdown. Ops 2, how copy?
Ops 2, copy.
Approaching 30 minutes to the launch time. The weather, as you see, looks pretty favorable for today. There was some earlier concerns in the early forecast of some cloud cover in the area, but it looks like a very nice day on the eastern shore of Virginia. You'll continue to hear the Range Control Center, voices from the Range Control Center as the countdown continues smoothly with the loading process. The launch window for today will be about a 5-minute window that actually incrementally reduces from 15 down to 5 over the period of the launch countdown.
Go ahead, Arso.
Roger. We've received our last balloon report for DFO, and it still has that one house that is exceeding our criteria. That is currently the house that we still are awaiting proper mitigation on.
Okay, copy that. Thanks.
And MES-1LC countdown 1 verified. TOS-1 and TOS-2 temperatures are decreasing.
Copy, LC, temperatures decreasing.
Roger that. Check step.
Kyle, there you see a shot of the Range Control Center there at Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia.
Of course, your office in Dulles also is watching very eagerly as well today, correct?
That's correct. We have a Cygnus Operations Center, Cygnus Mission Control Center. There you see it there at our Dulles facility. This team will be operating the Cygnus cargo transfer vehicle once it's on its journey to the space station.
And that journey actually begins, obviously, with the launch. The launch itself is considered part of the rendezvous with the station. As mentioned earlier, the station will be deep over the South Atlantic. At the time of launch, Cygnus will be launched into an orbital or an elliptical orbit that will allow it over the course of the next 3 days to stair-step its way up with a series of rendezvous maneuvers to eventually catch up, rendezvous, and be berthed to the station using the station's robotic arm. The robotic workstation that the crew members on board will be used and have been training in for several days this week will be in the cupola of the International Space Station with the robotic workstation inside the laboratory as on standby as the hot backup for the berthing process that Luca Parmitano will oversee aboard the station.
And electrical 1, LC on countdown 1, verify launch enable and telemetry.
Launch enable verified.
LC copies, check 344 complete.
And RSO and TD, can I get a go?
For Channel 1?
Roger, TD. Based on the report, range safety is green for DFO.
TD?
TD is green.
As we just heard, the range is now clear. They've cleared the last. There was one house that was still occupied. I think that they just voiced that has been clear from a range standpoint.
DFO is now green. All systems are green for launch vehicle, for Cygnus, and for the range at this time.
So at the launch countdown now at 26 minutes 15 seconds and counting to launch, you just heard that all systems are currently green aboard the Antares rocket, Cygnus itself, and of course with the range.
It all looks very good, Kyle, and maybe we'll look at the vehicle on pad from a distance. We could take a closer look at the Antares launch vehicle itself. The Antares launch vehicle is just over 130 feet long, has a gross liftoff mass of 640,000 pounds. First stage is powered by two Aerojet Rocketdyne AJ-26 engines, which produce a combined 740,000 pounds of sea-level thrust. The booster is comprised of a RP-1 tank in yellow there, and the liquid oxygen tank in blue, which carry a total of 534,000 pounds, or 242 metric tons of propellant. For this mission, the second stage utilizes a Castor 30 solid motor from Alliant Tech Systems, or ATK, which produces up to 72,600 pounds of thrust. Second stage also incorporates the avionics section, which includes orbital-produced Mach modular avionics suite. At the front end of the vehicle for this mission is the Cygnus cargo transfer vehicle. Cygnus is comprised of two primary elements, the service module, which you saw initially, and the pressurized module produced for us by Thales Alenia Space in Turin, Italy. The pressurized cargo module can hold up to 19 metric cubic meters of cargo. There you see the service module. That's produced by Orbital, derived largely from components from our existing Leostar and Geostar spacecraft. Cygnus is protected by a composite payload fairing, just about 3.5 meters in interior diameter. The vehicle on pad today and subsequent initial vehicles will be able to put about 5,000 kilograms into low Earth orbit. Subsequent versions will increase that to about 6,250 kilograms, or about 13,750 pounds. That translates to about 2,630 kilograms of cargo, or just about 5,800 pounds of cargo for our upgraded versions.
And everything continues to go smoothly in the countdown, just approaching 23.5 minutes to launch. The next major item in the countdown timeline will be about 46 minutes after the hour, which is when the proceed with the final countdown poll should take place.
347, apply external power to FTSA and FTSB.
FTSA and FTSB are on external power.
Copy, Ops 2, check step 347, electrical 1, verify FTS external power.
FTS external power status, voltage and current nominal.
GSO concurs, good ATCs
Copy that, electrical 1, check step 348. FTS, verify FTS indicates safe and receiving tone 4 with nominal AGCs.
LC, FTS safe, configuration verified. Tone 4 being received, AGCs are nominal.
Roger that, FTS, check step 349 complete.
Kyle, while we look at the Antares vehicle on the pad, and we give a brief review of the COTS launch mission team for today. Our mission director is Frank Culbertson, veteran astronaut and our Executive Vice President of Human Spaceflight Systems. The launch conductor, whose voice you are hearing now during the initial countdown, is Adam Lewis. The Antares launch director for today is Mike Laidley, Deputy Director of Antares. The Cygnus mission director for today is Frank DeMauro. The launch call-outs that you'll hear during flight will be from Mike Dorsch, who's the Antares chief engineer. He's supported on console by Tim Fackler, who's the ground segment chief engineer, and also Jim Nicholson, who's the Cygnus chief engineer. The NASA range test director, whose voice you've been hearing as well, is Sarah Doherty. And the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport is represented on console by Sean Mulligan today.
So in addition, just for situational awareness aboard the International Space Station, the crew actually this morning has been going through some emergency training exercises or drills to essentially keep them up to speed on if in fact there were emergencies on board, how they would deal with it, and also exercises the flight control team as well. So throughout some of the early morning hours during the countdown, that's what the crew's been doing aboard the station. That crew made up of Commander Fyodor Yurchik and Luca Parmitano, who we've talked about as being the prime for robotic arm operations relative to Cygnus when it arrives, and astronaut Karen Nyberg. They're in their 113th day aboard the International Space Station, and hopefully they'll have an opportunity to be able to watch via laptop computer on board the station the Antares launch delivering Cygnus to orbit.
FTS A and B internal power on, external power off. Time is 14:38:12.
LC copies Ops 1, check step 315, Electrical 1, LC step 351, verify FTS internal power status.
FTS internal power status, voltage and current nominal.
Copy Electrical 1, check step 351 complete. And FSO LC on countdown 1, you're go to send FTS receiver arm command for 2 seconds, then remove. Continue tone 4 when function removed.
FSO Roger. Arm on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. +1, +2. Arm removed. Tone 4 continued.
FTS, verify FTS arm indication and telemetry.
LC, FTS arm indication. FTS is safe in arms, and FTLUs are safe.
Copy that, FTS. FSO, verify FTS arm indication.
FSO, FTS arm indication.
Copy that. We'll check steps 352, 353, 354, 355, and FTS, did you also verify SNAs and FTLU are safe?
LC, FTS confirmed. Check step 356.
Roger that. Check 356.
And launch team, this is LCA on countdown net. Be advised, we do have a black line to constraint ID 12.3, the LOLS interface temp. We'll be blacklining the upper limit constraint from -317.2 degrees Fahrenheit to -317.0 degrees Fahrenheit.
And the countdown continuing to go smoothly. We're approaching 18 minutes, and John, it was a bit of a road to get here. Obviously, we had the test flight back in April, but the work to get Antares back on the pad for this launch began pretty quickly.
Agree.
Yes, Kyle, it did. It's been 5 months since our last launch, and over the course of time, we've been preparing the Cygnus launch vehicle, or the Cygnus cargo transfer vehicle. The Cygnus cargo transfer vehicle, as we mentioned, consists of 2 primary elements. There you see the pressurized cargo module, which is derived from essentially the multi-purpose logistics module that comprise nodes of the International Space Station built for us by Thales Alenia Space. There you see final preparations of the service module as well, which is derived from Heritage Orbital Geo and LEO star mission elements, satellite elements. These two primary elements are integrated and combined, and then cargo is loaded into the pressurized cargo module. You see the bags of cargo being inserted into the Cygnus. These are bags which are delivered to us directly from NASA. We have a general idea of what's inside of those packages, but we integrate them into the vehicle and deliver them to the space station. For this mission, even though it's a test or a demonstration mission, as you can see, we've loaded about 1,300 pounds of cargo to be delivered to the space station.
And the crew is greatly anticipating the arrival of that Cygnus. It will be berthed to the Harmony module's nadir port, the Earth-facing port on Harmony. Harmony is one of the connecting nodes of the International Space Station that allowed for the installation of two new science laboratories, the European Space Agency's Columbus Laboratory and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency's Kibo Laboratory as well. Harmony also has the visiting vehicle port for such vehicles as Cygnus. The docking port hosts mainly the HTV, the Japanese cargo vehicle, and now the Cygnus vehicle, which will be the 135th visiting vehicle to the International Space Station when it arrives, which is scheduled for early Sunday morning. As you see, the countdown continuing smoothly, all continues to be green on the range with the vehicle and with Cygnus, the cargo vehicle itself, approaching 15 minutes to launch. Now it's 9:43 a.m. Central, 10:43 Eastern Time. The liftoff time, 10:58 Eastern. At this point in the count, we should be coming up on the poll to proceed with the final countdown.
Check step 359.
Kyle, as we look at the vehicle on the pad, you can see the chill down of the main engine components, as well as the venting of liquid oxygen from the vehicle itself.
And at about 48 minutes after the hour, that's the point where we reach the 10-minute to launch point. That's when the launch window will narrow from 10 to 5 minutes at the start of that engine medium flow chill down.
CMD on countdown 1.
Go ahead, CMD.
Cygnus is on internal power and nominal.
LC copy. CMD will go ahead and check 358 complete.
And that's a good call that the Cygnus itself is now on its own power, been disconnected from ground support power as we approach the 13-minute point to launch. When Antares lifts off, it's actually going to head on the same inclination as that of the International Space Station, off toward the southeast. So this gives you a good view of the potential viewing opportunities for the folks inland quite a bit, and also along the coastline all the way up to the northeast and to the southeast along the coast, all the way down towards South Carolina. So could be a good viewing opportunity of the rocket engines and the plume as Antares delivers Cygnus to orbit.
And launch team, this is LC on countdown 1. At this time, I would like the poll to proceed with final countdown and medium flow chill down. MES-1.
MES-1 is go.
MES-1 is go. GCE.
GCE is go.
GCE is go. ACE.
ACE is go.
ACE is go. GSO.
GSO is go.
GSO is go. RSO.
RSO is go.
RSO is go. TD.
TD, go.
TD is go. Mars.
Mars is go.
Mars is go. CMD.
CMD is go.
CMD is go. LD.
LD is go.
LD is go. Orbital.
Orbital, the SSG David Lowe is looking for a good ride. We are go.
Copy that, Orbital. Launch team is go to proceed with final countdown and medium flow chill down. Check step 360 complete. Site control, step 361. Arm tel for rapid retract.
Yeah, copy that. In work.
And launch team, be advised, phase 4 dynamic limits are active at T-minus 10 minutes.
Kyle, we just heard the launch team give go for launch. All elements have reported go, and everything looks good for our launch on schedule today.
And in the countdown, that's kind of the big one. Obviously, there's a lot of polls that take place from the start of a countdown, but that was the final poll to proceed with the final countdown as we approach the 10-minute mark. That's where the engine medium flow chill down begins, and the launch window will officially be narrowed from 10 to 5 minutes. Again, the liftoff time, 10:58 a.m. Eastern.
T-minus 10 minutes and counting.
And MES-1 reports start of engine chill down at medium flow.
LC, we're in medium flow.
Copy that. Check step 364. Ops to LC, step 366. Apply internal power to rocket cam.
M&O, DPM on 1.
M&O.
Yeah, step 124, we're coming up on it. We're not there yet, but we're getting close.
So with that call, the engine medium flow chill down has begun. The next major step in the countdown is the initiation of the auto sequencer transition, basically the transition to terminal count, and that should be coming up about 54.5 minutes after the hour.
Perhaps while we're waiting for that call out, we can take a look at the rollout of the launch vehicle to the pad. Kyle, the elements of the Antares launch vehicle and the Cygnus are integrated in the horizontal integration facility you see there in the background. On Friday morning, early, we rolled out the integrated launch vehicle on our transporter erector launcher to the launch pad. The TEL and the Antares vehicle are transported about a mile from the HIF to launch pad 0A on a pair of articulating transporters. Once at the pad, the TEL engages with the in-ground hydraulics, which serve to erect and lift the vehicle onto the launch stand. This is a slow process to minimize the loads on the vehicle and the Cygnus itself. The TEL also provides accommodation for environmental control and all the electrical connections through liftoff. This whole process that you saw there, from rollout to vehicle on stand, took about 6 hours.
And that all took place this past Friday, or at least the rollout phase of this. And as you see, we're just under 8 minutes now to launch. The launch time, 10:58 a.m. Eastern Time from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport Launch Pad 0A there at the Wallops Flight Facility.
Kyle, for the mission today, we'll have full telemetry coverage throughout all phases of flight. That telemetry coverage will be provided by a trio of ground stations, initially at the Wallops Flight Facility itself, then the Coquina ground station, which is in North Carolina, and then ultimately the Bermuda ground station.
Just under 6.5 minutes to launch. It's quiet on the loops. Everything is still green as we approach the point of the terminal count. Again, that should be initiated at 54.5 minutes past the hour. Be sure to join the conversations associated with today's launch out on the social media network. Anytime you want to follow what's going on, hashtag Cygnus and hashtag ISS to follow the conversation associated with this historic launch from the Wallops Flight Facility there in Virginia. Also on board the International Space Station, all 3 crew members are gathering around their laptop computer so that they will have an opportunity, hopefully, to watch along as the Antares rocket delivers Cygnus to orbit on a 4-day rendezvous with the International Space Station, with the rendezvous and berthing activities scheduled for early Sunday morning.
And Ops 1 LC, step 376, you go to transfer avionics to internal power.
LC Ops 1 in work.
Mark, T-minus 5 minutes counting.
LC avionics internal power on.
Check 376, electrical 1, verify avionics internal power nominal.
Internal power nominal.
Check 377, TD, report range status.
Range is green.
Check 378, Ops 1, you go to open FTS umbi loop and verify green indication.
Copy. FTS umbi loop is open and green.
Check 378.1, FTS, verify FTLUs are armed with no receiver arm, no FTLU destruct.
LC FTS, FTLUs are armed, FTS is nominal.
Copy, check 378.1 and decimal 2, Ops 1, you go to activate arm enable.
Arm enable rotated and illuminated.
Check 379. Ops 1, you go to send all arm command.
All arm command sent.
Electrical 1, verify SNAs and ODMs, all indicate arm.
SAs and ODMs, all armed.
Check 380, check 381.
Kyle, as we pass the T-minus 5 minute mark, you just heard the launch team report that the vehicle is on internal power and all systems are go for launch.
And electrical 1, verify OCCS is commanding flight commuter to flight mode.
In work. Verified mission time set to -180 at T-minus 3 minutes, 10 seconds.
T-minus 3 minutes.
Check 385.
At 3 minutes to launch. At this point, the vehicle's in auto sequencer control. The initiation of the launch ordnance chain is upcoming just before the actual ignition of the stage 1 engines. All continuing to go smoothly. 2 minutes, 35 seconds and counting.
Preliminary lock tank pressurization started.
Check 388. SIGI, verify SIGI ready to configure for flight.
SIGI nominal and ready to configure for flight.
Check 389.
Just to clarify, Kyle, once the signal for launch is given, the engines actually conduct a very brief health check, and once the pressure or the thrust is verified in the engines, the hold down bolts release and the vehicle is away from the pad.
And that's after that health check, that's right at 58 even, and then so you actually should see liftoff about 2 seconds after the stage 1 engines ignite.
Yeah, that's correct.
T-minus 1 minute.
Mars video copies.
Check 392, check 393. Ops 2, disable ME1 and ME2 heaters.
Approaching 1 minute 30 seconds to launch. You will hear most of the voice calls you'll hear going uphill will be Mike Dorsch, as John mentioned earlier. He's the Antares chief engineer, so you'll hear him making most of the calls heading uphill for Antares.
T-minus 1 minute on my mark. Mark.
T-minus 1 minute counting.
Preliminary RP tank pressurization started.
Check 395, 396. T-minus 45 seconds on my mark.
50.
Mark.
And coming up on 30 seconds to launch.
Warp TM, verify rocket cam switch to external pod for stage 1 ignition.
Minus 30.
T-minus 20 seconds on my mark.
Minus 20.
Mark. T-minus 10 seconds.
Standing by for engine ignition.
8, 7.
Go Antares, go Cygnus.
4,
3, 2, 1.
Mark.
We have ignition. We have liftoff.
And we have liftoff of Antares, beginning the journey of the G. David Lowe Cygnus cargo vehicle to the International Space Station.
Speed is nominal. TVC steering is nominal.
Power is nominal.
All systems behaving well at this point as Antares leaves the Mars pad. 0A is the Walton flight facility. Propulsion systems on stage 1 performing well at this point. Attitude is nominal. Very minimal steering commands at this point in the mission. Antares is making its second flight. On this mission, we're sending Cygnus on its first journey of many to the International Space Station.
Looks like they fixed the rocket cam now.
Looks like. Beautiful view.
Propulsion, avionics, guidance, and steering systems are all behaving well at this point. We're getting good downrange video. Very clear day to fly out.
1 minute, 10 seconds since launch.
And we're getting nice views of the eastern shore as we depart pad 0A. Engines are 100% power now, so we'll remain at 100% power level until approximately 4 minutes into the mission.
As Mike Dorsch reported there, the first stage will fire for approximately 4 minutes, propelling the launch vehicle to an altitude of approximately 113 kilometers or 70 miles.
The 3 pressurization valves come on in the core now. BNG3 and the fuel tank pressurization system is now on as well, as expected. Attitude, power, main engine and steering systems all appear nominal at this point.
Two minutes into the flight.
Very minimal steering commands at this point in the mission. Core pressures remain strong. Power buses look healthy. Engines remain nominal at 100% power level. Attitude looks good. Again, very little steering observed in the thrust vector control system on stage 1. Core pressurization systems are performing well at this point as we're past T plus 2 minutes 30 seconds. TVC is nominal, again, with very small steering commands at this point.
Approaching 3 minutes into the flight, the stage 1 throttling should begin about 3 minutes 24 seconds after launch.
It's clear day, a great shot of Antares traveling downrange.
Engines remain at 100%. Mixture ratio targets are very close to nominal at this point. Valves VNO 4, 5, and 6 and the LOX tank pressurization system have come on. Core pressures remain healthy at this point. Altitude passing 250,000 feet.
50 miles in altitude now, traveling about 7,200 miles per hour.
Remain nominal.
Stage 1 engine shutdown should occur at 3 minutes 53 seconds.
The engine's outboard in preparation for the main engine cutoff event. That'll happen close to T plus 4 minutes. MECO in roughly 10 seconds.
At MECO, the vehicle will be traveling 10,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 66 statute miles.
Separation.
There we see what appears to be a very nominal separation of the first stage.
Beautiful separation there. It's
very clean separation between the upper stack and stage 1. Stage 1 is drifting nicely away from the vehicle at this point.
Bob's got good track.
The first of the upper stack attitude control systems has been enabled. We're now coasting in a ballistic phase of the mission until we reach the proper conditions for fairing separation and then stage 2 ignition.
4 minutes 35 seconds into the flight. Interstage separation should occur about 5.5 minutes into the mission.
Stage 2 ignition at roughly 330 seconds into the mission. That's about T plus 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Kyle, there we see a graphical animation, but the telemetry is coming directly from the vehicle, which shows the attitude control thrusters guiding the vehicle at this phase in flight. As Mike Dorsch reported, the next major milestone will be fairing separation.
Just about 19,600 feet per second of velocity. Looks like a very strong performance from the stage 1 propulsion system.
And we're standing by for that fairing separation upcoming here shortly.
Again, we are waiting for Antares to reach the proper conditions for fairing separation. We have fairing separation. Attitude remains nominal. Stage 2 TVC batteries initiated. Interstage is separated. Attitude remains nominal. Stage 2 motor ignition.
And that stage 2 motor ignition occurred at an altitude of 116 statute miles, traveling 9,700 miles per hour. Stage 2 will burn for about 2.5 minutes until the 8-minute 1 second mark in the launch.
To their maximum pressure at this point. Attitude remains good. Stage 2 TVC is operating well at this point. Attitude is nominal. Altitude is 225 kilometers. Caster 30 motor pressure is just starting to roll off the peak operating condition at this point. Attitude remains nominal. TVC remains nominal. Avionics power is very healthy at this point.
7 minutes into the flight since launch at 10:58 a.m. Eastern. Just under 1 minute remaining in powered flight.
Altitude is now 250 kilometers. We're towards the latter portion of the Caster 30 burn at this point. Attitude remains good.
So as we can see from the telemetry directed graphical animation, all systems are performing nominally.
T plus 7.5 minutes at this point. We're just waiting end of the Caster 30 solid rocket motor burn. Attitude remains good.
standing by for stage 2 burnout and orbit insertion. The Cygnus will actually separate 2 minutes after that, just after the 10-minute mark since launch.
Again, we should see motor tail off very shortly from the Castor 30.
Kyle, at this point, the vehicle is traveling about 16,700 miles per hour.
And stage 2 burnout. Attitude anemometer will now coast in preparation for Cygnus payload separation.
Now in a basically a short coast phase before that Cygnus separation, the orbital insertion altitude is 150 by 185 statute miles, or 243 by 299 kilometers. For reference, the station is at an altitude of 261 statute miles. So Cygnus is in a lower orbit, which will allow it to catch up with the International Space Station over the course of the next several days.
And at this point, we're just standing by for roughly another minute before payload separation.
And if you like, John, if you like telemetry, this so far has gone basically by the book. It looked very good so far.
Yeah, everything seems nominal so far. What we see in the animation are the attitude control thrusters positioning the vehicle.
Remains nominal. Power systems look good. Should be just over about 30 seconds away from Cygnus payload separation.
9 minutes, 30 seconds into the Cygnus mission to the International Space Station. Another 30 seconds or so before Cygnus separation from the stage 2.
Attitude at this point. T plus 9 minutes, 45 seconds. Power is nominal. Still have good, healthy telemetry here in the RCC. T plus 10 minutes. And we have payload separation.
Kyle, the launch team reports successful payload separation.
I don't think that could have gone much better, but obviously they'll pore over all that data for a while. But they've got a mission to perform now to head to the International Space Station. That was just a beautiful launch. We're standing by now for the sequence that will deploy the twin solar arrays to provide Cygnus power on its way to the station.
Attitude remains nominal as we continue the collision avoidance maneuver.
So as the Cygnus payload continues on its way, we'll be conducting some post-separation maneuvers of the upper stage to make sure there are no possible collisions of the two bodies.
11 minutes at this point. The Antares team wishes our Cygnus teammates and our NASA partners a successful voyage to the ISS over the next few days.
Well, Antares has certainly done its job, and now we're standing by to get confirmation on the solar array deploy of the Cygnus, and they'll hand over the control of that Cygnus to the Dulles facility. And as you see here in Mission Control, a great number of people that were guests and watching over, along with the flight control team, the launch of Cygnus. Everybody here very happy and aboard the International Space Station watching the launch and listening to the launch coverage.
First motion, go 261, hours, 14 minutes, 58 seconds, 02, colon 2.
Copy, 145802.2.
That's good readback.
LC Alps 1?
Yeah, step 4 is 7, deactivate arm enable and verify.
Arm enable rotated and deilluminated.
So, Kyle, we saw the celebration in the Antares range control room. Now the work begins for our Cygnus mission control team as they take the Cygnus vehicle on its way to the International Space Station.
Well, the everything we saw here and on the TV and listening, obviously it was a beautiful launch. We'll have some launch replays here shortly, hopefully. And the attention turns to the Orbital's facility there at Dulles, Virginia. They'll be overseeing all of the Cygnus activities, and we'll be standing by for the confirmation of the solar array deploy, obviously. There's a whole sequence of events that occurs between now and Sunday, including a large number of delta velocity or DV rendezvous burns combined with a series of approach delta velocity burns over the course of the next several days that will slowly raise Cygnus's orbit up to match that of the International Space Station as they head toward that rendezvous and docking berthing profile. Here in the station flight control room, you see Courtney McMillan there on the back row talking with Flight Director Mike Lammers. She will be transitioning to the Orbit 1 shift here in the control center. She's been the lead for this project for quite a long time, so she's greatly anticipating the arrival of Cygnus as well. She'll be overseeing the Orbit 1 team, which is on duty from about midnight to 8 a.m. Each day. That corresponds with the rendezvous and berthing times that we have for the Cygnus that are laid out for the Cygnus arrival. While we're standing by for the confirmation of the solar array deployment. We'll take a look now at the launch replays from the beautiful launch of the Antares rocket delivering Cygnus to orbit. He's coming from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport there at Wallops Flight Facility.
So there we see again main engine ignition and liftoff of the Antares vehicle. Liftoff occurring, as you mentioned, Kyle, from the Wallops Flight Facility, which is actually the oldest launch range in the United States, established back in 1945 by NASA. Certainly all systems seem to have performed nominally during all phases of flight, and it'll be interesting to hear, Kyle, if some of the surrounding residents were able to see the launch from their vantage points. There we again see smiling faces in the Antares Range Control Center. Maybe this is a good opportunity to thank the major suppliers and contributors for the Antares launch vehicle. Those include Aerojet, who provides the AJ-26 main engines. Those engines were actually originally developed by the company now known as JSC Kuznetsov in Russia. Moog provides our thrust vector control for both the main engine and the second stage. Yuzhnoye Yuzhmash provides design, test, manufacturing of the core structures, propellant management devices. Dnepropetrovsk provides the core GSE. PFI provides the thrust frame manufacturer. FFP was the feed line manufacturer for the engines. SSP provides a pogo suppression device manufacturer. ATK, once again, provided the second stage Castor 30 solid motor. RDE provided the tanks for the attitude control system. Applied Aerospace Structures Corporation provided all the composite structures that you saw in the vehicle today, including the payload fairing. Ensign Bickford provided the linear and stage separation systems. RUOG provided the payload separation system. Martinez and Turek was largely responsible for the bulk of the GSE manufacturing at the launch site. AFS provided the TEL hydraulics, and Diamond Heavy Haul helped us haul the booster from the port of Wilmington, Delaware.
Definitely takes a large team to safely launch a vehicle and put a payload into orbit. There's no question about that.
Yeah, that's right, Kyle. And also key to that team, of course, was our NASA partners as well as the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport that helped in the pad preparations, range control. They were able to turn around range operations in a fairly short period of time from our Minotaur 5 launch, which was successfully launched a week ago Friday for NASA with the LADI mission.
Well, we're continuing to watch a launch replays. We have a couple more after this one, but we do have confirmation that the team has been congratulated from the commander of the International Space Station, Fyodor Yurchikhin, and the rest of the crew members that make up Expedition 37, including Luca Parmitano from the European Space Agency, representing the Italian Space Agency on board, and Karen Nyberg, a U.S. astronaut. They watched along and listened along to the launch activities. There you see the nicely vacant launch pad there at the Mid-Atlantic spaceport, regional spaceport on the eastern shore of Virginia. It's that's actually a beautiful sight right there.
Yeah, it looks like a very clean pad at this point, and no brush fires like we encountered on the last launch. So trimmed the grass.
And we'll continue on with a couple more launch replays. We're still listening in with the Cygnus team, all going very smoothly with the continuing health of the spacecraft as they are in the process of deploying the solar arrays on Cygnus, which will provide continuous electrical power to the vehicle and its batteries on its journey to the International Space Station. And John, we just got confirmation. That's great news that the solar arrays are deployed. That call coming at 10:24 a.m. Central, 11:24 Eastern Time.
Yeah, Kyle, that's correct. We have confirmation that the propulsion system on Cygnus has been initialized, and the rays have been fully deployed. So Cygnus is now on its way to rendezvous with the International Space Station. Another shot of the vacant launch pad at the Wallops Flight Facility. Kyle, the team will now begin preparations for our next Antares launch with another Cygnus cargo transfer vehicle. We're working with NASA on the exact schedule for that launch, but we believe that launch will occur in the late December time frame later this year.
Sometimes we have it's nice to have problems when you have vehicles on the highway, so you have to make sure that it's clear, and you juggle a few things here and there relative to launches, crew launches to the station, other cargo vehicle launches to the station as well. So this is certainly a great step in getting to that next Antares Cygnus launch.
Yeah, that's right.
Performing well at this point. Attitude is nominal. Very minimal steering command at this point in the mission. Target is making its second flight on this mission, or sending Cygnus on its first journey, as mentioned. Propulsion, avionics, guidance, steering systems are all behaving well at this point. We're getting good downrange video. Very clear day to fly out. The onboard rocket cam, we're getting nice views of the eastern shore as we depart pad 0A. Engines are 100% power now, remain at 100% power level until approximately perform the mission. Passing through max Q at this point of maximum dynamic pressure in the mission. Very modest steering commands through max Q. 15 being of 3 pressurization valves come on the floor now. BND3 and the fuel tank pressurization system is now on as well, as expected. Attitude, power, main engine, steering systems all appear nominal at this point. Attitude remains nominal. Again, very minimal steering commands at this point in the mission. Core pressures remain strong. Power buses look healthy. Engines remain nominal at 100% power level. Attitude looks good. Again, very little steering observed in the thrust vector control system on stage 1. Core pressurization systems are performing well at this point, as we're past T plus 2 minutes 30 seconds. TBC is nominal, again with very small steering commands at this point. Core pressurization performance remains good. Altitude's passing 175,000 feet. Velocity just over 7,000 feet per second. Engines remain at 100%. Mixture ratio targets are very close to nominal at this point. Valves VNO 4, 5, and 6 and the LOX tank pressurization system have come on. Core pressures remain healthy at this point. Altitude passing 250,000 feet. All stage 1 propulsion systems remain nominal. Attitude remains nominal. Good. We are canceling the engines outboard in preparation for the main engine cutoff event. That'll happen close to T plus 4 minutes. MECO in roughly 10 seconds. MECO. And stage 1 separation. From the onboard camera, it looks like we got a very clean separation between the upper stack and stage 1. Stage 1 is drifting nicely away from the vehicle at this point.
FOB's got good track.
The first of the upper stack attitude control systems has been enabled. We're now coasting in a ballistic phase of the mission until we reach the proper conditions for fairing separation and then stage 2 ignition. Guidance is computed stage 2 ignition at roughly 330 seconds into the mission. That's about T plus 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Altitude is 165 kilometers.
And we're back from the launch replays. You're looking at the Orbital Sciences Cygnus control room there at Dulles, Virginia. They're responsible now for watching over the Cygnus cargo vehicle on its way to the International Space Station. And I'm sure they're a very happy team, but John, they're still working feverishly. They have a lot of work to do, actually, to watch over this vehicle throughout its whole mission. Once it gets to the station, it's there for about a month, and then, of course, then there's the departure that the team oversees as well.
Yeah, that's correct, Kyle. Essentially, this team's work just began, and they'll be very busy over the course of the next 4 days, working to execute the remaining COTS demo mission objectives, which includes verifying Cygnus on-orbit operations, testing those Cygnus systems, then conducting a rendezvous and capture, of course, with the space station, and then all operations while Cygnus is berthed to the space station. And then, as you alluded to, about 30 days later, when Cygnus departs the station and is effectively very precisely directed to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere at a very prescribed location.
And so far, everything is going very, very smoothly. Just a couple of programming notes to remind before we head off the air. We will be back tomorrow with our usual coverage of International Space Station operations at the usual time, 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern. But upcoming next, obviously, quite a lot of happy people. There'll be a post-launch news conference following the Antares rocket delivery of Cygnus to orbit on its rendezvous profile to the International Space Station. The post-launch news conference upcoming at 12:30 this afternoon Eastern Time. So just under an hour from now is the targeted time for that. The expected participants in the briefing: Robert Lightfoot, the NASA Associate Administrator out of headquarters; Alan Lindenmoyer, the manager of the Commercial Crew and Cargo Program; and also, of course, Frank Culbertson, who's the Executive Vice President of Orbital Sciences. Those three are expected to be participants in that post-launch news conference. Be sure to follow along here on NASA TV, and for those out on the web, from the social media, if you have questions, obviously, for that news conference, our method for getting those questions to the team there at Wallops Flight Facility is the hashtag #AskNASA. That's our standard for press briefings. So be sure to use that if you have a question for the briefing. Again, hashtag #AskNASA out there on Twitter and Google+. And hopefully that'll get to the team for that news conference scheduled about an hour from now. It's been a great morning. The launch countdown, other than a couple of minor events that caused a slight delay in the launch time, and that's not really the target is hitting a prescribed launch time. It's mainly getting there safely, and the launch time occurred at 10:58 a.m. Central Time as the International Space Station flew about 260 statute miles above the southern Indian Ocean on a chase to catch up with the station now. The Cygnus spacecraft, healthy, solar arrays deployed at 11:24 a.m. Eastern Time following that 10:58 a.m. Launch. A number of programming notes also upcoming with the arrival of Cygnus at the station. These may be tweaked a little bit. Our coverage obviously will begin in the wee hours of the morning with the Cygnus capture and installation activities all folded into that coverage. And that, again, will be followed also by a news conference as well. But we'll be tweaking that as necessary in terms of the capture times if that's required. With an 8-minute later launch than originally scheduled, there may be some adjustments made with some of the orbital burns that can be tweaked to reach the station at the originally prescribed or advertised time. So we'll be checking on that, obviously, over the course of the next several days. before we sign off, obviously, I wanted to once again thank John Steinmeier for joining me here for the coverage. His expertise obviously is very valuable to helping all of us understand how this vehicle is put together and launched to orbit. So, John, thanks again for coming to Houston and joining us for this great day.
Well, thank you, Kyle, for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here, especially to report such a impressive launch, and looking forward to the next opportunity. Before I sign off, if I could, I just want to give a brief shout out to my daughter, Elke Steinmeier, and Jacob Aveliana, who were engaged last night. So.
Well, yeah, congratulations to them for sure. And just again, before we sign off with our coverage, we'll be back again tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central, 11 Eastern, with another day of coverage of activities aboard the International Space Station, and we'll update you obviously then on Cygnus's progress toward the International Space Station. Next up at 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern, the post-launch news conference from the Wallops Flight Facility of the Antares rocket delivering Cygnus to orbit. We'll sign off here from Mission Control. Have a great day.